Hello, I'm back. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Priory of the Orange Tree. Now, I don't have a physical copy of this book. I listened to it on audiobook. It's a 2019, mostly standalone book written by Samantha Sanin. Now, there was a prequel book published I think it was last year, I think. I haven't read that yet, but I got it on Audible. But it takes place, I think it was 500 years before the events of this book. Now, the book follows 4 different point of views: Ied, Tane, Loth, and Niklaus. Now, Ied is a spy for a secret organization called the Priory. This is where the book gets its name, where their base surrounds this magical, orange tree, that grants them magic if they eat, the fruit of it. She currently lives in the capital of Ennis, which is, based around England. I think it's supposed to be, 1600s, roughly. 1700s, I think. And she's scouting the Queen Sabran, because the world believes that her bloodline is the only thing that keeps evil dragon that they call the Nameless One at bay, and that if she were to die, he would come back. And then Loth, and that's his nickname. I can't remember what his full name was. I didn't write it down. He is a nobleman and a close friend of the Queen, but he ended up being sent away to a different country because the people closest to the Queen were concerned that they were in a relationship, and they wanted to try and manipulate the Queen to marry the people that they wanted. And so they sent Loth away because they believed he would pose a threat to that. So he left with one of his friends for the kingdom of Ascalon that has been taken over by people who worship the Nameless One. And I believe there's a high western dragon that lives there. I can't remember, but they go there to supposedly investigate, try and make contact with them, but they all know it's a death sentence. And then there's Tane, who is a dragon rider in training for the Empire of Psyche, and she ends up getting her own dragon named Naimitha. The dragons of Psyche are based around the Asian dragons, where they're more serpentine, and I think they're more connected to water, I believe. While the Western dragons are more based around the European style of dragons, where they're more fire based, I think. And then the last point of view is Niklaus, who is a banished alchemist sent to an island off of Psyche that has trade with the country that Niklaus is originally from, and he was sent there because he had failed Queen Sabran in making an elixir of life, and he was lying to her about it, and she found out and she banished him from the country. Now, actually, quite a bit of the time the characters don't intersect that much. They know about each other, but they don't meet that often. Ied and Loth were friends, but they don't meet back up until I think it was halfway into the book. And so Niklaus actually knows about Tane, because in the very beginning of the book, Tane is actually the very first point of view we get. And so she had broken a rule about her training, saying before the ceremony for them to be chosen as dragon riders or scholars, that they can't leave their houses of study. And so she had broken it to go bathing, I believe, in the nearby ocean. Kind of one last time. I think it was supposed to good luck, I think. And so she ends up meeting, I think his name is pronounced Triam. It's Triam. And so he and his lover, Trude, who she's the granddaughter of Niklaus's former lover, and they had made a plan to go to the east to try and make an alliance with Psyche, because they believe that that the Nameless One was going to be returning, and they needed help with their dragons in order to try and fight them. And so she had met Priam, brought him back to the mainland, but she couldn't let anybody know what happened because she broke the rule. And if they found out that an outsider was in Psyche, then they could cancel the ceremony. They could put them in like quarantine because people get what's called, I think it's the red sickness or like the draconic sickness, and it could put everybody in danger. And so she sent her friend to take him to the island where Nicholas lives and convinced him to hide him there until the time being, when in reality they were going to like report them to the warlord. And so Nicholas knows about her because Priam described Tane when they first met. And then Nicholas, I don't think he meets yet until like the very last portion of the book. Like Loth and Ied don't really meet Nicholas and Tane's point of views until I think over halfway into the book. Like they know, Ied and Loth know about Nicholas because they were around when Nicholas was around. And I think they probably met him, but they don't meet back up in the story until like I said, a long time into the book. And with like their point of views, like I thought that Tane's and Ied's chapters were better because I felt like they had more plot focused a little bit. Like they always somehow relate to the plot, but I was more like focused on theirs. Like Nicholas, like I didn't mind his chapters, I just didn't like him that much as a character. And then Loth, I thought he was kind of boring for most of the book. Like he just seemed too generic. I thought that Tane's ending was just confusing, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And yet I thought that she had more stuff going on, like for her, with like her relationship with Prince Bran, with her Priory. And at least with Tane's chapters, I was kind of annoyed because we meet her dragon Nyamutha, who really didn't do anything for much of the book. Like, this whole book is about dragons and trying to fight the Nameless One, but we barely see the dragons at all. Like, they keep mentioning stuff that happens of like dragons burning villages, showing up. And I think we only see dragons on page, like having like characters to like actually interact with them like 4 or 5 times. Like Nyamutha, I think she kept getting taken out of battle, like every time she was on screen. She was kidnapped by pirates. Seeing Tane go to the country where the Priory of the Orange Tree is. She gets shot down and then goes to the ocean to like recover. And then during the final battle she shows back up and then she gets attacked again and gets badly injured again. So it just felt like, for a story all about dragons, they barely did anything for the plot. And it mostly focused on like the human characters. They were saying that the High Westerners were extremely dangerous. And we did see like them coming out about twice. And they did sort of be pretty dangerous. But also the final battle lasted for like 10 pages. It felt like it went by so quickly that it could have been stretched out a lot longer over like 4 chapters, like 4 like good sized chapters for the book. And then we don't really see that many of the Eastern dragons that much, so the dragons in the book were very underwhelming. And then a bunch of the other side characters, they weren't all that memorable. I think they were serviceable for the plot. Like, they did their jobs. I mostly believe that they fit into like this world. Like I think the characters in the plot and stuff and everything were like competent. Like, it's like for the most part like pretty well written. I mostly believe stuff that was going on. Like, it wasn't that bad. I think it was just some of the stuff could have been expanded on. Yeah, so I did kind of feel like the political drama took way more time than I thought it could have, because it really did feel like the plot only really started to like kick up a lot, like over halfway into the book. But then I felt like, I don't know, I felt like some of the stuff really like dragged on, because for all of the urgency they were saying, it felt like things just like kept going, and then it really like rushed through the battle with the nameless one, Kaliba, like so quickly that it was very jarring to me. And it was like they were saying that in order to try and defeat the nameless one, they needed the same items to like stick him back in the dragon mount. Like they did go in search of the sword for a while. They were trying to figure that out. They did some like questing stuff in order to try and get stuff. And then Tane, like there were these two jewels that they needed to find. One of them was in the west at the Priory, and then the other one was like lost. No one knew what it was, and then Tane just magically had it in her side. And I don't think it was ever mentioned before this that she had like a lump in her side, because I think it was she started having like pain, I think, and then she went to the doctors, I think it was, and she was saying she always had this like thing on her side, and then but I don't think it was mentioned when she was first introduced, so that kind of came out of nowhere, and it just so happened to be the same tool they needed. I also kind of felt like with them searching for the stuff, have like more dragons trying to attack them in order to like stop them from getting everything they needed to defeat the nameless one, which would have been like a good way to incorporate more dragons into it instead of having them show up every like 15 chapters, and like it felt like they did almost nothing in the book. Like, I mean, they did the two big times I remember them appearing did push forward the plot in some way, but it did really feel like they just did the rest of the time they did almost nothing until the ending. I really didn't think that the character relationships were that bad. I mean, some of them did kind of feel underdeveloped, like Loth and Ied. Most of the friendship took place off screen before the book happened, and by the time the book starts, Loth is already gone. And so that one I felt like we could have seen Loth and Ied before he left. See them interacting more. Like, we were told about the relationship. We do see, like, I think Sabranch talked about him a few times. I think Ied is friends with his sister Margaret. But I do kind of wish he had more screen time with the two of them before he leaves. Because, like I said, he doesn't come back until, like, a lot later into the book. So when he comes back and he sees Ied again, and he finds out her secret, it didn't feel all that impactful because we never see them interact until now. Like, I liked Ied and Sabran's relationship. Like, they do get together. Like, they do end up falling in love and becoming a couple. A good ways. Like, for the most part, felt natural because, like, we do see them interacting quite a bit. Ied had been in the castle for a while, so, like, their relationship felt more natural than theirs with Loth. And so it wasn't super insta-love yet. Felt like it did take several chapters for them to actually, like, do anything. I also did kind of wish there was a bit more world building, because it did kind of feel like they repeated the same stuff over and over and over again, where we got the story of how the Nameless One was originally defeated, and they did reveal kind of like the truth behind what really happened 1,000 years ago. But other than that, I kind of felt like there wasn't enough to, like, because as we do go to several different countries, but I didn't feel like we got enough really with them to really like understand them that well. And then, like I said, it was pretty quick. I also felt like Tane mastering the jewel off screen wasn't really that good of an idea because she finds out she has the jewel inside of her. She hides it so that no one can find it, and then I think she came back to rescue. No, yeah, I think she left somewhere. Yeah, I think she left the scholar, like the scholar's tower, because after it came out that she knew that there was an intruder and everything that kind of happened with that, she gets like exiled from like the dragon riders. I think she left there with the jewel, and next time we see her using it, she's somehow like, I think she's like, maybe not mastered, but she has like a pretty good grasp on the stone to the point where she's like pretty good at using it, even though she never knew she had it beforehand. And so like she did try and train with Ed later on, but I think that was also off screen. And so I kind of wish we had like one or two more scenes of Tane training with the stone and like kind of like failing, because it just kind of seemed like she was already like pretty good at using it. Not like a master, but like pretty talented. See her at the very end. Well, before this, at one point, we found out that like two different types of magic in the world, and they're like opposing each other. Like the Eastern dragons are one, the Western dragons are like another, and there'd be like a balance between the two of them. And it's like when one is stronger, the other is weaker. And so there was like an opposing like fruit tree to the orange tree. It was the mulberry tree that was residing in the east that had been like lost to time. I think it was destroyed by, I don't think it was by Kili, but was it? I don't think it was Naporo who was like the empress at the time, and helped to defeat the Nameless One. And Naporo's family were the ones who had the jewel, and they were sewing it in the side of the descendants so that the Nameless One, after it came back, they still had it. And we find out that Tane is the descendant of the Naporo. And I think that kind of came out of nowhere too. Like, I don't think we never got anything with like co-parents or like anything strange about her lineage, about like why she might be important. So like, I think Tane's stuff just kind of came out of nowhere. The mulberry tree's like dead, they couldn't get any magic from it. And so Tane had gone back at the end after they defeated the Nameless One, and she goes with Naim with her. I think she has the jewel with her. And so she falls asleep in the morning. She's like awake, I think, and like her side that had she took the jewel out was bleeding, and it's never explained why. I don't think it's ever explained if she's dead or if she's alive, or like what happened. Like, did she put the jewel back into her side to hide it so that no one can take it in case the Nameless One comes back? Or is it the magic of the jewel doing it and it's going to revive the island? Because the island, I think, is dead. Like, it wasn't like the priory of the orange tree and the orange tree that where they kind of like kept it alive. They kept it going because they had like a duty. I think this place was like lost to time, and I think it's supposed to be something involved in the magic of the jewel. I think is trying to do something with the island, I think, but it's never explained. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And so I really did feel like the ending came way too quickly. This book, I thought, could have been longer, or just had some of the stuff cut out of it, because there were like times where they'd feel kind of like repeating, or it could have been split into like two books, honestly. Like I don't know, book one being focused on them figuring out everything with the Nameless One, kind of like roughing up, and then the ending of that be like the nameless one gets freed, and then book 2 is them trying to like defeat the nameless one or something. I don't know. Like, I don't know if there was stuff they had to cut out of it to make it the length it was. The lead up to the final battle I thought was fine, and then the final battle happened, and then everything after that was like so fast that it didn't feel all that realistic to me. Like, I'm not saying that like the final battle and then the resolution had to be like 20 chapters. It could have been like 10 or 11. Like decent sized chapters. You would have been like fine with it. And so I did kind of feel like there was stuff in the last part of the book that I don't feel like will be solved that much. And it did just kind of feel like it did not come out of nowhere, but it did. Like, I also do think that even though this book could have been longer, I also felt like it was too long at the same time. Like, it's very big. The audiobook was like 24 hours, I think. I think the physical copy is like 800 or 900 pages. So it's too big, but not big enough. Well, I think it could have been the same length, but cut out some of the drama with the people and then fix the last part of the book. Like, the world doesn't feel as big as like Wheel of Time or A Song of Ice and Fire. It felt like the book was trying to be like this big sprawling world, but it just didn't feel like that. I think it's just because I don't read that many, like I said, standalone fantasy books, so I don't know how it compares to other ones. Because I mostly read stuff that's in like a series. I'm just looking at my bookshelf. So like Wheel of Time, A Song of Ice and Fire, Stormlight Archives, like they all feel like mostly pretty big. Like there's a bunch of stuff going on. And I felt like we didn't spend enough time in specific countries, except for maybe like Innis, to really get to like know them that well. I think that's the problem with that. Like I said, if this was just a duology, I thought it would have been a lot better to really like explore more stuff. But I think she was trying to fit too much into one book. I mean, generally I thought this book was, like I said, fine. But I think that's everything. Peace.